let me give you a little inside information about God. God likes to watch. He's a prankster. Think about it. He gives man instincts. He gives you this extraordinary gift, and then what does he do? I swear, for his own amusement, his own private cosmic gag reel, he sets the rules in opposition. It's the goof of all time. Look, but don't touch. Touch, but don't taste. Taste, don't swallow. And while you're jumping from one foot to the next, what is he doing? He's laughing his sick fucking ass off. He's a tight ass. He's a sadist. He's an absentee landlord. Worship that? Never.
No power in the verse.
What's
can
going
stop
on, guys?
Me.
My name is Al De Niro, and welcome to episode 121 of The Midnight Hour. I don't think that this will feel like a full episode to you. I don't know if I have it in me to go the entire hour, because I have such little amount of things to say. But anyways, here I am. I promised... no, I didn't promise anybody. I promised one person that I would do an episode where I talk about the year 2019 and give it a year in review type deal. And the more I tried to format that episode and the more I tried to select a guest potentially for that episode, the more difficult it seemed to me because I've been feeling very insecure about how out of touch I am with a lot of things lately. For example, TikTok is a thing now, and I'm not really entirely sure what it is or what makes it different to Vine, and I feel like incredibly just old and lame and just horrible about myself for not knowing this. But the same thing is true of like various other cultural trends, and where I used to have my finger on the pulse of all things popular, I don't really anymore. And I was trying to come up with like, well, what were my favorite movies of 2019? And I realized that I didn't really see many movies in 2019. I am, as ever, quite well informed about music in the year 2019, so I think the bulk of this episode will comprise music talk, and if you don't like that, you can like feel free to tune out and I won't be offended, and I can only apologize for the fact that you are not a music fan or that you do not care for my opinions on music. I did send a tweet out, if I just check here, from my Midnight Hour Twitter account. I didn't want to tweet this from my main account. I don't really know why, but I just said if hypothetically there were time for a Midnight Hour podcast before the year is out, what should be discussed? The best movies, music and stuff of the year, ? Anything else, ? And I was going to get Jack and Loosemore to join me for this episode, and I realized that if I were to do that, I don't think it would go very well, because traditionally we tried to do a year in review episode, and I learned that the movie that Jack liked the most in whatever year it is either Independence Day or Up. And Loosemore similarly will say something about Star Wars or something like that. So I don't know. I saw, I think, 2 films in the cinema in the year 2019. Also, like, it's too late to be talking about 2019. I know we're in 2020 now, and one of the main reasons why I want to get this episode out as quickly as possible is because I was looking at album releases that are coming out this year, and we've already had 2. We haven't already had 2. We've had one that I've really enjoyed, which is the latest Beach Slang album. It's called The Deadbeat Bang of Heartbreak City. And then we have a Mac Miller album coming out this week, which is a spiritual successor to his 2018 album Swimming. And I really liked Swimming. I think it's my favorite Mac Miller album. So like, I'm pretty excited for the new one. And I've just been looking at all this music that's lined up, and I'm like, geez, I want to talk about all this at the end of the year. And I realized I didn't even do that last year, and 2019 was like a pretty damn good year for music, if I may say so. Excuse me. So what was the other thing I was going to say there? The 2 movies that I saw in the cinema, one was Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. You can check out my review of that on my channel. It is longer than the movie itself. Maybe, it might not be. I know my Last Jedi one is longer than The Last Jedi. I think my Nerve review is longer than the movie Nerve. This is a thing that I do. Once myself and Santiago and or Loosemore start talking about movies, anything happens, and that's great. The other movie I saw was Joker. Did I see any others? Like, I'm looking at what's here. Parasite 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and there's another one. These are all on my to watch list, and as soon as they become available for me to watch them, I will watch them. It's just leaving the house is like a whole lot of effort. What else did we have, man? Oh, I saw The Irishman. Jeez, what am I saying? Yeah, I saw The Irishman. Got confused about that because I didn't go to the cinema. I also saw Avengers Endgame, and to be fair, I saw about half of the Captain Marvel movie on a plane before I tapped out because the screen was too small and there was the sun like beaming onto it, and it was terrible. So okay, I hadn't actually planned on talking about The Irishman at all because I only just remembered that I had seen it. But Joker was a movie that I really liked, but I didn't love, and I thought that it was very good from a technical standpoint. It was incredibly well acted, it was beautifully shot, but it was just so derivative that I think that it loses points. And one thing that I will say in favor of the movie Joker is that it is very hard to be original in a comic book movie because you're always going to have to draw from comic book things. You're always going to have certain reference points, which I think is really obvious. I'm not really gonna go into spoilers, I guess. But like there are things that happen in it that you have already seen on a screen like 8 or 9 times at this point. Now that I don't actually mind. I think that that's all part of the story and it's relevant to tell those things. But I recently went on a Martin Scorsese binge in preparation for The Irishman because Scorsese is my favorite director of all time, and most of his films will comprise my top 10 favorite movies of all time. But I started in like the late 70s and I watched Taxi Driver and I watched The King of Comedy, and I watched them both within about a month of having seen Joker, and it really made me realize how unoriginal Joker is as a movie. There are so many basically shot for shot selections where you can say this is a complete I wouldn't even say rip-off. I don't actually believe that it's a rip-off. I don't think that Todd Phillips is making Joker thinking that he's being entirely original here. Like, that's not my assumption. It's pretty obvious to me that he's tributing Scorsese and that Scorsese is his favorite director and all of those things, but it's just so much winking and nodding that it just loses points for me along the way. And I'm sure Todd Phillips will be devastated to know this because I know that he holds the Midnight Hour podcast in such high regard. And like, Todd, I know that you're listening and I expect you to text me the second that you hear this. But yeah, honestly, I thought that it was very good, and that should be the thing that you take away. But just it stops becoming a great movie when you analyze how entirely derivative it is of, in particular, those two films. And there are elements from other like crime movies and stuff like that he takes as well. Then there's The Irishman, which I just think is a masterpiece. I think it's the kind of movie that you'll either love or hate depending on your reception to the style of film that it is. It's very long. The technology that they use to de-age the actors is generally very good and not distracting, but there is one scene in particular which happens within the first half an hour of the movie where you just really see in very vivid detail how old Robert De Niro is and how unable to go he is. And that really does take you out of the movie, and it really does destroy a little bit of the immersion. But other than that, the movie is fantastic. It's incredibly well acted. A lot of people said that Robert De Niro was quite flat in it. I really disagree. I think he was playing a character who is generally emotionless and an incredible, like almost psychopathic type of character, but Robert De Niro puts as much emotion as you possibly can into a character like that. And the fact that you can like ruminate over how the character feels and what's actually going through his head, I don't know, I think it would have been a great movie to do a really long review on. But by the time I got round to it, I just noticed that like there are so many better people on YouTube who do stuff like that, and it makes me feel very like out of sorts, and I get very like, oh man, why would anyone want to hear me talk about these kinds of things? But yeah, generally speaking, I think what I said is true. I think if you attempt to analyze Frank Sheeran, I'm literally going to have to fucking Google this because I'm 150 years old. And the reason why is that I work with someone who is named whatever the other one is. Frank Sheeran. Okay, so I work with a guy called Frank Sheeran. Yeah, so if you try and analyze his emotional response to the things that happen in the movie, I actually think it's a really interesting lens through which to watch it, and you'll get a much better sense of the type of acting Robert De Niro was doing in the movie, because it may shock people to learn that I, El De Niro from Ireland, idolize Robert De Niro. But yeah, I will. I'll kind of like stand for him and defend everything. Like, I won't defend most of the year 2000 onwards in terms of the movies that he was in, but I really do think that this was a staggering performance, and one that is worthy of acclaim, and not one that you can just shun and say that he was flat in it. Joe Pesci was absolutely excellent, and Al Pacino is 79 years old, and he lit up every single scene that he was in. I think it was a ballsy move on his part to play Jimmy Hoffa and not really do much like Jimmy Hoffa-ish traits, or what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't really know, but he just embodied the character very well, I think, in spite of the fact that there are not really a lot of visual or aural similarities between the two. But he brought so much energy into the movie, and I think that for such a long movie, the pacing in it is incredibly good, because you're kind of hooked from the start by the slowness and the kind of, I guess, like the artistic presentation of the era that it's doing. And then when Al Pacino comes in, like, you're ready for that energy and you're ready to be lit up, and it's it just works so well. I really think that the three of them were fantastic, and it was so good to see them all in this movie. And even if it is like a eulogy or a funeral for the gangster genre in general, on behalf of Scorsese, I think it's so worth watching. And it's kind of like the anti-Goodfellas in a way. Like, there's some really interesting things in it, the way it's such a slow-burning movie. And every time it shows like a certain gangster, it will pop up on the screen and say like, oh, this guy like died brutally, like 7 gunshots to the head, all of that stuff. But it doesn't actually show you any of the violence. It just spells it out for you in vivid detail that this is not the type of lifestyle that you want to get into. Because when in Goodfellas, he shows all of the violence with much like kind of cinematic rigor and detail. It gets criticized for being a movie that glorifies the gangster lifestyle, which I just don't understand how you can take that message from the movie, but that criticism will always be there. Whereas The Irishman is like the antithesis of that kind of argument, and you can't really go against it. So if anyone is criticizing The Irishman for doing the same thing, I guess it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of ordeal. But I think it's such a good movie, and another criticism that gets leveled against it is that it doesn't really have enough women. It is based on a fucking true story, and women did not play a very central role in this true story. Having said that, though, I do think that Anna Paquin's line, I think she only has like 2 lines of dialogue, but one of her lines in it is, for me, the most important and impactful line of the whole movie. So, yeah. There's all my thoughts on that, so you can take that to the... You know what I should Google is TV shows from 2019, because I actually watched quite a few. The most recently, I started watching The Boys on Amazon Prime. It's like this anti-superhero type show, or it's like the inverse of the Marvel Universe. And it sounds very contrived and bad when you describe what it is. But it's basically a world where superheroes are treated like gods, and their public image is very well maintained by like marketing companies and things like that. And it turns out that they're actually like just as bad, if not worse, than your average corrupt politician. And it's a really interesting take on the genre, I feel. And I think since the year like 2008, pretty much the whole world has been in superhero movie hysteria, and I think that The Boys is a very interesting take on it. Like, it's just another direction, something that people weren't expecting, and it's really cool to watch. Also, Karl Urban is in it, and he just plays a very compelling and excellent character, and the main guy in it is so relatable too. And then there's like a superhero who has just been inducted into the world of superheroes, and you relate to her too, because you get to see what it's like from like a new person joining the whole superhero cult. And I don't want to spoil anything else in it, because I'm not here to do spoilers, but I would recommend watching that show. It's only 8 episodes. You can get the free trial of Amazon Prime and watch it in like a week or a day if you don't really have a whole lot of time in your hands. And then you can, have a great time watching that. Another TV show that I watched in 2019 was season 3 of Atypical, which is a Netflix show. It's been going since I think the year 2016, maybe 15. I'm not sure. But it's about like this family ultimately. Season 1 is kind of mostly centered around the boy. His name is Sam. He's like a 15, 16-year-old kid in season 1, and he has autism. And I think this show approaches autism in a very interesting way. Like it does. There are some things that I guess that woke people would describe as quote unquote problematic. I'm sure that that's true, but I also feel like most of the reviews that I have read of the show from people who are on the spectrum or are related to people on the spectrum all seem to say that it's a very positive representation of autistic people, even if at times it's not entirely correct. But one interesting thing about the show was that after season 1, they listened to the people who said that it's not entirely correct all of the time. They hired more actors who are who are atypical, like who are not who would not be considered neurotypical. They hired more writers with experience with non-neurotypical people, and the show really comes into its own, I think, in season 3 because they kind of approach the whole family and the issues that the whole family are dealing with, and as a result of that we get to see other characters in the show being fleshed out, which is really interesting because I think oftentimes when shows focus on one character, they tend to have a few very good seasons and then they just trail off into insanity, and I don't see this show going that way as of yet. It's not an amazing show. Like, I mean, it's kind of like a sitcom. It's sort of like it's low budget enough and very not entirely predictable, but like it's not the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's very heartwarming. There are a lot of scenes in it that will make you feel things, and I think that that's something that we all need. It's a great show to watch on a Sunday night because you're like all depressed about the fact that you have to go to work the next day, and you kind of end each episode with like, that's good, that's nice, that makes me feel good. So I get like there's been lots of TV shows out, like Stranger Things. I really enjoyed season 3 of Stranger Things. I actually thought that it was phenomenal. It was quite possibly my favorite one. The last episode, just the finale, everything about the finale was so damn good. And yeah, everybody knows about that. The Mandalorian is a TV show that came out. I'm only on I've just finished episode 2. I think I still have to watch episode 3. I'm not entirely sure, but I will get to that. And I would consider doing a podcast with Santiago and Loosemore about the implications of the Mandalorian series, if there are any. The sense that I get from it so far is that it's kind of a like there is one storyline and that's it, and everything that happens along the way is like a mini side quest adventure type thing. It strikes me as that kind of TV show. I might be wrong, but it seems I get a lot of like Star Trek Voyager kind of vibes off it in that sense, in the storytelling sense. I think, did that latest season of that come out in 2019? Let me do a quick Google here. Pro podcasting right here. Before I do that, actually, will I just see, was there anything else? The Expanse, I need to watch that. I haven't watched Mindhunter season 2. Like, I've completely fallen off, lads. I used to be so good for this kind of thing, and now I am just not. So let me see. Black Mirror 2019. Was there a new? Yeah, Series 5. Okay, yeah, Series 5. I actually did a review of one of the episodes, Smithereens, which is one of my favorite episodes of Black Mirror, I think. It's probably like top 3 in total. And I don't know what would make up the list entirely, but Smithereens is one of the main episodes that comes to mind when I think of episodes of Black Mirror that I loved. Everything in it, from the acting, the storyline, just the message it tried to portray. I remember at the time people saying it's not a Black Mirror episode, but like, fuck off. It is the embodiment of a Black Mirror episode. It is the epitome of the very concept of Black Mirror. It's just that it's not fucking futuristic enough for some people. But it's great. The other one, Striking Vipers, about Striking Vipers is a very interesting episode. I don't really know like what I think of the implications of it. But it is really fucking interesting to watch. I recommend, like, how could I give you like a one-line incentive to watch it? I'm actually not gonna. It's based around video games and the implications of like VR implementation in video games, and then I guess like it plays with the boundaries of what is considered acceptable in social relationships, I suppose. And it does it in a really interesting way. And then there's episode 3 of series 5, which is Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2, and it's one of the worst episodes of Black Mirror that I have seen. Nothing to do with anyone in it. Like, Miley Cyrus is fine in it. The character that she plays is fine. Just the whole like concept and everything around it, I think, is very weak. And that's pretty much... So there's a thing in episode 3, and this was an observation I made that I think would sound really clever if I worked for like AV Club or one of them. But before I tell you, let me blow my nose. Like, good fucking Jesus, I'm so nasally. So in real life, there is a band called Nine Inch Nails, one of my favorite bands of all time, and one of their very first singles is a song called Head Like a Hole. And in episode 3 of series 5 of Black Mirror, they rework that song into a pop song where it's like, instead of head like a hole, black as your soul, I'd rather die than give you control, it goes, hey yeah, whoa, I'm on a roll, riding so high, achieving my goals. And instead of bow down before the one you serve, you're going to get what you deserve. It goes, I'm so stoked on ambition and verve, I'm gonna get what I deserve. And it's like, in my opinion, this version of Head Like a Hole and its reworking is so lazy that it reminds me of them just taking all of the concepts from the original Black Mirror episodes and just retreading them out in this episode. Like, it's just so lazy, and I thought it was really poor. A lot of people really liked it, and that's fine. I don't care. I just didn't enjoy it at all. I think that episode and the Where's Waldo one or whatever from season 1, I think that those are the 2 weakest episodes of Black Mirror in total. We also had a Black Mirror movie called Bandersnatch, which came out very, very, very late 2018, to the point where it would be considered 2019. And it was this like really ambitious sort of interactive movie where you choose everything that the person does. And I think the concept is interesting. I think that what they're trying to say in it is interesting, because I don't actually believe in free will, and I think that the message of the episode itself, which is that you're not really in control of your own choices, even though it seems like you are, like, I totally believe that. But I just found Bandersnatch to be very frustrating, and I understand this is like a meta thing, and it is deliberately frustrating so that it simulates the frustration that the character has, but I just did not enjoy it at all. It just didn't really give me what I was looking for. The acid trip scene was pretty cool, but other than that, like, I just was not into it. Elsewhere in 2019, we had some video games that were released that I'm sure you people loved. There was Death Stranding, there was The Outer Worlds, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, there was a new Call of Duty Modern Warfare game, there was the remake of Resident Evil 2. I didn't play any of these fucking games. Apex Legends came out as well. FIFA 20 came out. I didn't buy any of them. In 2018, I spent I was looking at my fucking receipts, and I spent like 450 to 500 euros on video games, and I didn't really play any of them. I bought Red Dead Redemption 2 on the day of its release, and I downloaded the 100 billion gigabyte version of it onto my shitty fucking first gen PlayStation 4. and I played it for about 4 hours, and then I just went straight back to Age of Empires 2. Like, I am a fucking disaster human being. I'm one of those people that will just not part with the thing that I love. I remember when I used to live with Nep, like way back, 2012, I think, and the two of us were very like clued into or like hooked on making FIFA videos, and that was all that we wanted to do all the time. And sometimes Nep would play World of Warcraft, and he would get so into it that it would take up days of his life, and he'd fall behind in video making, and I would just look at him and be like, man, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you don't get any money from World of Warcraft. Like, you need to make FIFA videos and just stop with that World of Warcraft nonsense. And I do the same fucking thing with Age of Empires, and I do it all the time, and I don't know. It's like one of the worst things about myself. But also, it's an amazing game. I really enjoy it, and I've streamed it a few times, and you guys seem to enjoy at the very least listening to me talk while I play it. So I'll take that. And for anyone who's interested, they've re-released Age of Empires 2 in like Super HD with loads of new features and loads of new civilizations, and it's like $20 fucking, and you should go buy it. It's a real-time strategy game. In my opinion, it's the best real-time strategy game. Others will tell you StarCraft 2 is. Others are wrong. Nah, I've never even played StarCraft 2, and I don't think that anything could tempt me away from AoE at this point. But yeah, it's sad for me that like video games used to be such a huge part of my life, and I could feel in my YouTube days when I was hammering out FIFA videos every single day, and all I could do was play FIFA. I felt my love for video games dwindling then, but I thought to myself, like, YouTube is ruining my video game experience. All I have to do is play FIFA, and when I play something else, I feel guilty because it's taking time away from money I could earn playing FIFA, or like, let's also be real, like fun that I would have playing FIFA. But then I also think it's just that I'm getting old, and this is what happens when you get old, and I wish I could be one of those people that ages gracefully and fucking appreciates the world around them and is willing to play Death Stranding. Because, like, I love Hideo Kojima, like, I love the soundtrack to the game, I love, like, Metal Gear Solid is, like, my favorite fucking media experience of my whole life, but I just can't dedicate that much time to walking up cliffs with FedEx packages, you know? I just don't have it in me, so, that's that. I guess, is there anything else before I go into music? Somebody said your own personal highlights of the year. I'm one of those fucking cunts that every single time it's a year end, I'm very much so a lot of people are like, oh, new year, new me, and then a lot of other people are like, oh, it's time for all the new year, new me people, and I hate like all of that really, but I do genuinely feel like the passing of a year is an ideal time for reflection and like a good time to look back at your own personal growth and sort of judge yourself against the person that you were in the year before. Like, it's an arbitrary line. Yes, it's 12 months and this is the last day of the last month or whatever, but I still just feel like there's some value in it. But for the last like maybe 4 years, I have been looking back and saying, this has been a terrible year, this has been a terrible year, and I'm like, I'm wondering if it's even worthwhile doing that anymore. I did have some very good times in 2019, but I also had a lot of really bad times, and I had some, like, I don't know, I had some really bad, like, personal moments that are, like, two of the worst things that can happen to a person happened to me in 2019, and that was why I was, like, fully prepared to do this, Midnight Hour season thing. I was going to do 10 episodes. I had all the guests not lined up, but I had like 5 people agreed, 2 of whom have never been on the show before. It would have been really exciting. And then one of my good friends died, and then I kind of had like I don't know, I was off work for a long time on compassionate leave, and then I didn't really put any of that time to good use in terms of, I don't know, creative output, but it was definitely time that I needed. And I've had like other issues, like health issues and stuff. I have extremely bad insomnia that is the worst that it's ever been, and I constantly feel like just fucking exhausted, and all I ever want to do is lie down. And like the thoughts of like getting to grips with something new, or the thoughts of putting effort into anything outside of work, these are all like just concepts that are very far away. And one of the main things that I'm looking for in 2020 is to conquer my insomnia, and one of the first steps to doing that is I have to get an operation on my nose, and then a few other things. But yeah, I start a new job next week, and I will be on a new health insurance program. So I'll have a look at that and see if there's anything that can be done in that regard to sort of help me with the struggle and all of that stuff. So there were not many highlights is what I'm trying to say. But the year has ended strongly, and I'm recording this right now on a Tuesday afternoon because I'm off work in between jobs, and I'm going to see Slipknot tonight. So a pretty good start to 2020, I feel. Other than that, we have Sean asked if I could talk about conspiracy theories. I have an episode of this podcast lined up to talk about conspiracy theories with my friend Miguel, who I really fucking love recording podcasts with Miguel. I feel like the chemistry that we have is just incredibly on point, and I feel like when it comes to the Midnight Hour, most people will only accept either Jack or else Loosemore and Jack Brown, and I kind of feel like, I don't know if I'm right about this, but I get the sense that that is the only combination that will please people, and I don't know if that's just because as the podcast became mostly listened to on audio platforms instead of YouTube, it has meant that the comments have died out, which would make sense. But it's just really fucking hard for me to judge what you people want. So yeah, that makes me hesitant to record new episodes. But I have so many people who want to come back on the podcast and that I really want to talk to. But then I just get worried, like, there was only 4 episodes in 2019, you know? And I just get worried that, like, I'm, like, flogging a dead horse here or whatever. And that people aren't going to care. And then one thing that I'm, like, super insecure about, I guess, is my guests coming onto the show and feeling like it was a complete waste of their time. Like that's the thing that like really fucking eats away at me, because like sometimes I've had people on and the only comments that I've gotten were negative, and even if it's like, you know, there could be like 3,000 people listen, 12 comment, and one of them leaves a negative comment, but like the negative comment really fucking stings, because it's like, man, I have put so much effort into getting this person onto the show, and like I've told them like how great my audience is, and how like generally speaking my audience is probably the most what's the word I'm looking for here, like tolerant and just like fucking like basically polite audience that you can get from like a small scale show of my level. And then there's just a negative comment and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, why do I bother? But yeah, we're talking about one comment, and this is purely it's like, I would fucking hate to be a really big YouTuber. Actually, maybe I wouldn't, because you can bury people who leave negative comments. But yeah, anyways, I will have Miguel on the show and we'll talk about conspiracy theories, because that man has a very funny and very like unique kind of insight into those types of issues, I feel. But he's also very well read on conspiracy theories, and I don't know, I really, really enjoy his perspective on stuff like that. I kind of wish in many ways that I had the kind of mind that he has, because he has like a very... Geez, how can I put this? He has like a fundamental appreciation of why everyone thinks the way that they do, but he also has like this secondary layer of just really fucking witty, like comedic insight, I feel. And it's, yeah, no, I don't know, it's so different. Like I look forward to having him back on the show. And then another question from Jack's Angle, who says, where original Jack has been since 2016. Dude, I don't fucking know. He's not on Twitter anymore. I can't even fucking ask him. Yeah, no, I haven't spoken to Jack in a very long time, and I don't know what he's doing. I hope he's doing well. I see actually, you know what, I haven't even seen him on Instagram in a very long time, but his Instagram stories pop up from time to time and I check them out, and like it seems like he's doing well. I think he's the kind of person who I've always felt like he's destined for big things, and maybe not necessarily big things in like a Hollywood Walk of Fame, or Hollywood, what is that thing called? Is it the Walk of Fame with the star? Maybe not like necessarily that kind of big thing, but like I just feel like he will go places and he will get all of the things that he wants in life, no matter how insecure or doubtful he may be about himself. I really think he's the type of person who, once he can visualize something, he will find a way to go after it, and yeah, I'm super envious of that trait, even though I sometimes don't know if he knows that he has it, but he does. And in the very, very, very unlikely event that he's listening to this, I would like him to know that he will get all the things that he wants in life. So with all that out of the way, what was that, like 33 minutes? Have I been talking for 33 minutes and I haven't even got to the one thing that I wanted to talk about? Jesus. I would actually genuinely like it if you guys could leave a comment and tell me either or both what you enjoyed most in 2019 in terms of media, or even if like how the year was for you from a personal perspective, and then I would like you to tell me what you're looking forward to most in the year 2020. So man, I've drank half a can of Red Bull and I have heartburn. I also ate a jambon, which is the thing that only Irish people know. I think the English will be like, yeah, that's French for ham, but it means something different in Ireland, and it's very good. Right. So, I have in front of me, from Wikipedia, list of 2019 albums, and it means albums released in 2019, not here's a list of 2019 albums. So I am going to start from January and work my way down to December, and I will stop at the albums that I have listened to, and I will tell you what I thought of them and whether or not I believe they are worth your time. Let me just do a quick check on my phone. All right, pro podcasting. When I podcast by myself, I enjoy like this kind of extra layer of freedom that I have to it. Like I really just feel like I'm talking to a bunch of people in a small room, and that I can say whatever I want and no one will call me on it. So on January 18th, we had the first album I'm going to talk about. It's called The Wizard. It's by a rapper called Future. It's actually, Wikipedia has this wrong. The full album title is Future Hendrix Presents The Wizard. And it's not The Wizard, it's The Wizard. Because vowels are lame. Oh man. So The Wizard is like 18 tracks long. It's about an hour, I think, to listen to, and it has only got 2 features. Hold on, let me actually not list all of these things off from memory, and let me just actually look at the facts. Yeah, it only has 2 features. One track is called Unicorn Perp. It's got Young Thug and Gunna, and then the other track is called First Off, which has Travis Scott, which is one of the highlights of the album. It's actually 61 minutes, and I said it was an hour. I'm fucking great, man. I have such a good musical ability. I'm the man. The first single of the album was called Crushed Up, and I think you should go listen to that. And if you don't like it, don't listen to the album. For me, it's kind of like a Future by Numbers album. It is everything that we know to expect from Future. It doesn't say anything new. It just presents it in a slightly different way, and I really fucking enjoy it. But to me, like, Future is so interesting to me. I think he's such an overlooked rapper by the people who listen to the likes of Lil Peep and Lil Xan and Post Malone and like all that stuff. In my opinion, I don't know if I'm right about this. I'm very like not clued into rap music and what's considered canon in the mythology of rap music, but in my opinion, at least from my observation, Future invented the kind of like purple codeine hazed, like half singing, half rapping, just bleeding onto the page type of thing that the likes of Post Malone do. I think Future does it better than anybody else, and I think he does it in such a more nuanced and interesting way. Like, I listen to some Post Malone songs, and like it's just like it's dark and dreary to the point of being cheesy. Like, it's just so fucking over the top. And I think I Fall Apart or whatever by Post Malone is just, I think that is like, in terms of racing to the bottom emo rap, I think that song is the absolute worst version of I'm a Sad Rapper. that music gets. So I think Future has lots of songs with that exact sentiment that are handled in a much more dignified way. And I think that Future, although he has so many flaws and so many clangers, I still think that he just has a level of baseline integrity that's slightly higher than the average other emo rapper. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I think this album is worth your time. But if you do enjoy Future, you should just check out his 2015/2016 run, where he released I think it was 3 albums and 6 mixtapes, and it was just legendary. And every week you had a different Future project to look forward to, and it was just, I don't know. I think he's great, and there's very little difference in. Well, there is differences. There are plenty of differences in his projects, but I think the overall sound, the overall ethos is still the same, and it's so interesting to me. He definitely got darker and darker and darker as time has gone on, and The Wizard is kind of maybe a rerun of all of the different projects that we got from him in 2015/2016. It doesn't have one central kind of theme, but it's worth listening to, even though it's not his best. The next thing we have, Backstreet Boys released an album in 2019, and I did not know about this. I didn't even know that they were still releasing. January 25th, Bring Me the Horizon released their 6th album, I think, called Amo, which is Portuguese for love, because their lead singer Oliver Sykes has fallen in love with a Brazilian lady. And Amo is I have such difficulty expressing my feelings about Bring Me the Horizon as a band. They're a band that I think is fun to listen to, but I feel like I will look back in 10 years and really cringe at myself for being the age that I am, and even the gender that I am, and listening to Bring Me the Horizon. But they do have some sick riffs, and they do have such nice little production tweaks and stuff like that. So Amo is I don't even know what to make. Amo is a pop record disguised as a metal record, and it has a lot of interesting avenues in it that Bring Me the Horizon are attempting to explore. There's a track on there called Nihilist Blues, which features Grimes, and it's basically a 90s techno song. Then there's In the Dark, which is very electronic. Mother Tongue, which is essentially a Backstreet Boys song, and that's not a pejorative statement or even a facetious one. Mother Tongue is a track that you would hear from late 90s Backstreet Boys or other pop bands of that ilk. Medicine is a song that is kind of channeling the latter years of Linkin Park. Wonderful Life is a mix between early 2000s new metal and I don't even know what else. It's dubstep, maybe some kind of D&B. I don't know. It's kind of all over the place. Heavy Metal is a song that I don't know. A lot of this album, Ollie appears to be feuding with his own fans for saying that he's not metal enough, and his response is that he doesn't give a shit. And I do definitely dig the attitude. I like a lot of the tracks on the album, but I find it very hard to listen to over and over. And it's weird because it was actually my most listened to album in 2019, and I just wonder if that's because it came out in early 2019, so I had the whole year to listen to it. But I definitely played it to death when it first came out, and now I'm a little bit ashamed or something. I feel like how those, when politicians are staunchly anti-gay, and then it turns out that they've been fucking a busboy in their office for a year. I feel like how they probably feel in the aftermath of that scandal. That's how I feel about knowing that I've listened to Amo the most in 2019. But it's a cool album. And 2019 was a very good year for Bring Me the Horizon. They released this album, they pierced that mainstream veil a little bit more. They've become one of the biggest metal bands in the world. They sell so much merchandise. They were on Jimmy Fallon, I think, or Jimmy Kimmel. They were on Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel. They played a whole bunch of songs there. They did like a huge back-to-back world tours throughout 2019, and then at the very dead of 2019, they released an album called something fucking outrageous. That's not what it's called. Hold on till I read this fucking shit out to you. Music to listen to, dance to, blaze to, pray to, feed to, sleep to, talk to, grind to, breathe to, help to her. Anyway, it goes on and on and on and on. And it's complete fucking garbage. It's not an album, it's an EP. It's 75 minutes long, and it is just fucking nonsense. Like, there's very little in here to be what's the word? Dazzled by. I feel like they got very confident when they released this, and I don't know, it's nonsense. It's an underground EP, and it is basically just a collection of stems from the Ammo recording sessions, in my opinion. I think that if you listen to Ammo and then you go and listen to Music to Listen To, or whatever the EP is called, you will find yourself treading over a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same sounds, and it is boring and dull as hell. So in my opinion, they ended the year on a terrible note, but also in my opinion, they're kind of like, I don't know, I want to be nice about Bring Me the Horizon because I kind of respect them or whatever, but like you should honestly have a look at like any video of them live and tell me that Oliver Sykes is a good singer or screamer, because he is absolutely atrocious and he basically has no voice. Like, oh man, I don't know, I find them actually like difficult to listen to. Like, sometimes he mimes, he really phones it in, lets the crowd scream. There's a guy in the band called Jordan Fish who literally carries the whole fucking band with his voice and his mixing, and I would imagine he has a huge hand in production too. And I think since he joined the band, it's no coincidence to me that Jordan Fish joined the band and then they became like much more mainstream and much more of a crisp and finesse kind of sound. My favorite album of theirs though is Sempiternal because of the Terry Date production. Excuse me. Another album from January 25th was Everything's for Sale by a rapper called Boogie. There's no, in my opinion, on this album, there's no particular standout track, but it's still like a super interesting album to listen to. I think Boogie is like a very young rapper, I feel, and this is his debut album. He's only had EPs and mixtapes before. And I was kind of expecting something along the lines of Mike or Earl Sweatshirt when I listened to this, and I don't know why. I just felt like maybe he had been marketed that way to me. But Everything's for Sale is like it's like mature and level-headed, and I don't feel like there's any standout singles for me to talk about or point you to, but it's just a nice little hip-hop album to listen to. Next up there's an album called New Breed by a singer called Dawn Richard. It's a nice album. It's worth your time. That's all I have to say on that. Let's see, February 1st, we have a new album from Busted. Holy shit, where are all these people? Girlpool had an album called What Chaos Is Imaginary. I listened to it, but I did not feel I didn't feel like super incentivized to listen to it again, so that's that. Ariana Grande released Thank You Next. Is that the one? Now, she released like a whole bunch of albums in a very short span of time. This is the one that has... Oh, yeah. Thank You Next is the one. Ghostin' is the track that's like about Mac Miller. And honestly, I don't think I listened to this one the whole way through because I don't remember. I know Seven Rings and Break Up With Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored were both singles off of it, but I don't really think I listened to either of them. I can't remember. But I do think the God Is a Woman album was really good. What else was there? LCD Sound System. I don't think I even listened to that. New album from Avril Lavigne. I did not listen to that. Let's just scroll way down here. What do we have? So that's it for January and February. We go into March and we have Bryan Adams is still at it. Jesus. 2 Chainz released Rap or Go to the League, which was critically acclaimed, but I didn't listen to it because I find him to be the complete embodiment of boring rap. The Japanese House released an album called Good at Falling, which I listened to for the first time on the plane to New York on what would have probably been like March 14th or something, and it's a really good album. It's well worth your time. I don't really know what way to describe it. It's kind of like an indie sort of. It's described here as dream pop / synth pop, and I guess that's relatively accurate. But it's interesting though, because from my memory of it, it had like indie and shoegaze kind of elements, and I really like the shoegaze dream pop combination. I think that's such a winner. Like, I feel like there's no way you can do wrong when you combine both of those things. So yeah, Good at Falling is worth your time. Solange, I really hope that's how you pronounce her name. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it out loud before, but she released her second studio album called When I Get Home, and it's really fucking good. She's Beyonce's sister, for anyone who's confused. Let me just double check that to make sure that's correct. I'd really recommend listening to both of her albums. Her first one is called Seat at the Table. The second one is called When I Get Home. And they're both just really good listens from start to finish. I see here we have... Oh, Sucker Punch by Sigrid was a pretty good album too. She's this Norwegian singer, and she had like a lot of success with this EP that had tracks on it like Don't Kill My Vibe, and what was the other one? Oh man, she had like another song, but she sang Don't Kill My Vibe on Jules Holland, I believe, and the video went like kind of viral. But Sucker Punch is a pretty good album. It's maybe padded a little bit too much. But it also took like a long time to release, which may have actually harmed her momentum or something like that. But I enjoyed it. I think that it's worth listening to. It's a basic pop album for anyone who's interested. Well, what else do we have here? You have to respect how little effort I put into my podcasts, don't you? Jeez. Karen O and Danger Mouse released an album called Lux Prima. I have to be honest, it's very underwhelming. It's interesting to listen to just from the, like, Danger Mouse and Karen O have an album together kind of novelty, but it's unfortunately not very good. March 22nd, we have an album called Pony by a guy called Orville Peck, and this album is so fucking good. I actually listened to it yesterday again. It's like a... Oh man, I don't know how to even explain it. It's this kind of like dark and ominous album filled with... It's like country music, right? It has all the basic elements of country music, but it's like country music done by Trent Reznor or something like that. It's got such a sinister edge to every single like hook and beat in it. But it's about like it's an album filled with stories about the darker sides of West. No, it's not even that. Like the seedier sides of the old West, maybe. I don't know how to describe it at all. It's like a bunch of gay cowboy stories and stuff like that, but like it's so fucking good to listen to. I really, really, really recommend this album. It would probably be in like my top 20 albums of 2019 if I had to come up with such a list, which thank God I do not. Thank God you don't expect that of me. March 29th, Billie Eilish released her album When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? It's pretty fucking good in my opinion. It's not music I listen to very often, but like I listened to it and I was like, yeah, that's great. We all know the main songs off of it, like Bad Guy and such. And the whole album is pretty much, it continues in that vein. And I get very excited when young artists have a good grasp of their identity from such a young age, because it makes me excited about the type of music that they're going to make for the next while. For example, when Lorde first released, what was the first album called? Pure Heroine. It sounded like somebody who was very comfortable with her own sound, knew exactly what she wanted to do, was aware of her influences, but did not let that dominate her own creative input. And what we got was like a stunning album, and then a stunning follow-up in Melodrama, and hopefully another album from her this year. But Billie Eilish has that kind of thing where she seems very clued into what she wants to be, and that makes me really excited, because when somebody has a firm grasp of what they're about, they're able to produce things that are far more cohesive and lend themselves to greater creative analysis. And like, I guess Radiohead is like the quintessential example of a band like that, where Pablo Honey is kind of like, they had like some sense of what they wanted to be, and then they really perfected it in the next album. I guess like, if I were to make my point a little bit clearer, someone like Jaden Smith is the opposite of this. He has like an abundance of resources, and he is very aware of what he likes, but he's not very aware of what he wants to be. He just knows the things that he likes, and so all of his music is colored by his influences rather than his own actual creative output. And yeah, so I get excited when artists have the like opposite of that going on. April 5th, we had Morbid Stuff by Pup, a kind of pop punk band, but they're like a very good pop punk band. The album before Morbid Stuff is called something like If This Tour Doesn't Kill You, I Will, or something like that. But yeah, no, they're a super cool band, well worth listening to. On the same date, we had Titanic Rising by Why Is Blood? I don't know how you fucking pronounce this name, and it drives me crazy. And I saw her on Twitter say it's pronounced like Wise, and it doesn't look like it's pronounced like Wise. And I wonder, like, was I being memed when I saw that? But let's say it's Why Is Blood. Titanic Rising is a stunning album. I don't even know. I've seen it described as like a 1950s revival or some like mad shit like that. It's described here as like art rock, progressive pop, and dream pop. And then I don't know what label to put it in. It sounds to me like the type of music you would listen to if you were relaxing in a 1960s diner, but you were doing it in a science fiction novel or something like that. I really don't know like what to fucking tell you about this other than go listen to this album. It is very good. To follow up on that, we had Beyonce released a live album. I didn't even listen to that. The Rolling Stones released a new album. I didn't even know that. Cage the Elephant released an album. I've never understood their name. Are they demanding that I cage an elephant, or is the elephant's name Cage? The Mountain Goats released an album called In League with Dragons, and it is very good and very worth listening to. And if you don't know the Mountain Goats, I don't know if I would start with that album. But the Mountain Goats are this band that are led by a guy called John Darnielle. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And they used to be just him and a 4-track recorder with like very, very low budget lo-fi indie records that are colored by his extremely descriptive lyrics. He is actually a novelist, I believe, in addition to being the Mountain Goats. But then I think it was like 97 when a record label signed John Darnielle, and the music became a little bit more well produced. And now like every record is pretty much, I think he does all the instruments. But each record is like a concept where he tells a bunch of different stories, and he's such a good storyteller as a lyricist. Like, don't think like Bruce Springsteen, like that kind of storyteller. He's very more specific and descriptive than Bruce Springsteen, but like different. I don't know how to explain it. His voice can be very nasally, and if you don't like it, you won't enjoy any of it. But there's like, honestly, there's about fucking 25 to 30 years worth of records for you to go listen to if you get to discover the Mountain Goats for the first time. So that's like super exciting for you. There's a band called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and I will never listen to them because their name sucks so bad. In May, Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes released an album called End of Suffering, and I thought it was okay. I was like kind of a fan of Gallows way back in like 2007. When Frank Carter was their lead singer, but then I kind of moved away from that kind of music, and I found his Frank Carter and the Rattlesnake stuff gets less and less heavy as it goes on, and I don't really have a problem with that. I actually really like the refined sound of the lead single from this album, Crowbar, but the album itself just didn't hook me, and I don't really know why. I guess I would give it like a 5.5 out of 10 or something. Like, I still listen to it, but I just don't really super enjoy it. And then there was one of the albums of the year, according to most critics, which is UFOF by a band called Big Thief, and it was one of 2 albums that they released in 2019, and they were both like serious winners in terms of critical acclaim. I really like this album, but I'm just not able to talk about what I like about it. Like, it's very different. It's weirdly like psychedelic, but also not psychedelic. Like, the music itself doesn't sound psychedelic. It's just like thematically psychedelic. Like, this is why I really struggle to describe what kind of music it is. Like, it's essentially folk music, but it's kind of wrapped in this thin layer of otherworldly UFO kind of stuff. But it's, I don't know, it's super interesting. You should definitely check it out. What else do we have? Vampire Weekend, Father of the Bride. I listened to this because I listened to the Stereogum list of the top 100 albums of the decade, and this one was very high up, Father of the Bride by Vampire Weekend. And I will be honest with you, I do not know why people like this band. I actually feel like I'm being trolled. I feel like the whole world is just pretending to like them, purely to confuse me. And they seem to get 7s and 8s out of 10 on all of their albums, and I have yet to hear like one thing about them that I like, other than the appearance of Danielle Haim or whatever. Genuinely, they just strike me as awful, and that's based on many listens. So what's that fucking dickhead thing? Vampire Weekend are overrated. Change my mind. We had a new Biffy Clyro album called Balance Not Symmetry. I didn't listen to it because it's a soundtrack to a movie, and I don't really like listening to soundtracks without having seen the movie, so I don't know what to make of that. What else did we have? The National released an album on May 17th called I Am Easy to Find, which runs counter to the theme of the final track on Trouble Will Find Me, which is called Hard to Find. I actually don't know if that's correct. Is it the final track? Who cares? None of you are going to fact check me. But yeah, I Am Easy to Find is the follow-up to their 2017 album Sleep Well Beast, which I didn't really enjoy. I found it to be quite bloated. I think it has 2 of their best songs as a band on it, but it's coated it's diluted by an overabundance of slow-paced tracks that don't really go anywhere, in my opinion. I Am Easy to Find is much more vibrant and colorful than that. It has some of their best lyrics. I really enjoy the lead singer Matt Berringer. His approach to lyricism, I think it's very poetic and magical. And I Am Easy to Find has a lot of features from female artists, which is interesting, not because of any like woke reason or like women's representation in music type thing, but the National's music has always been very beautiful, and then the vocals are always he sings in like a baritone voice where everything sounds like this when he sings, and sometimes it even sounds like he's talking. And so to hear that juxtaposed by a female voice, which are typically more bright and uplifting, it's actually really nice. It's a super like I don't know. It's a super cohesive album. Very nice to listen to. I saw them live in Vicar Street a few years ago, and for one of the songs, Lisa Hannigan joined them. And I thought to myself at the time, like, this would sound really good as an album. Like, I would totally listen to this kind of thing regularly. And yeah, I would really highly recommend this album, especially if you're a fan of The National anyway, or even if you like any of their songs. I've always found like that the least accessible part of The National is that they have lots of slow songs dotted throughout their albums, and so they can feel quite exhausting to listen to sometimes if you're just not into that kind of thing. And I think their latest album, I Am Easy to Find, really runs counter to that. And I don't know, yeah, I feel like generally people will enjoy it. What other albums did we have? I think that's it for the first 5 months of the year, unless I'm missing something here. Oh, there was the Denzel Curry album on May 31st called Zoo. Z-U-U. This was really good, but I can't think of a single standout from it. I'm pretty sure he released 2 albums in 2019 anyway. I remember listening to this and really enjoying it, and he also did on Triple J like a version. He covered Bulls on Parade by Rage Against the Machine, which I really enjoyed, and so that kind of really made me warm to him as an artist, and I checked out that album and I really liked it. So on June 7th we had an EP released from Future called Save Me. This one is a lot less Future by numbers than The Wizard. It's only 7 tracks, I believe, but it opens with him singing in like a very like heartbroken kind of a way, and it's instantly compelling because you're suddenly learning that we had not even plunged to the darkest depths of Future's sorrow as yet, and that there's more to come. And it's only an EP, which generally signifies a broader release on the horizon or somewhere down the line. So this was like 6 months ago, and Future has a very high release rate, so I would expect something else from him fairly soon. But Save Me is a nice little EP, a good little placeholder, and it did come out 6 months after his album The Wizard. What else do we have? Silver Sun Pickups. Actually didn't listen to that at all. Bruce Springsteen released Western Stars on June 14th, and this album, in my opinion, is the musical equivalent of The Irishman minus the length, but it feels like a eulogy for the stories that Bruce Springsteen used to tell in breakout hits like Born to Run, or in like the darker classics like The River, where they are just stories about American people and things that happen in America. But on Western Stars, they have more to do with the broader meaning of life. And given that Bruce Springsteen is like 70 years old this year, it really makes sense that this is the type of record that he would make. But the title track of the album, Western Stars, is just stunning. And I really actually recommend that everybody go watch the music video to it right now and listen to the words in it. It's so good. It's such a beautiful song. It's about this actor who he's aging, and his greatest achievement in life was that he was in a scene with John Wayne in a movie, and it was near the end of John Wayne's career, but this one scene has made him such a hometown hero, and it gets him free drinks everywhere he goes. But now, like, he's still riding off that success, and he's getting old, and the younger people, when they see him, they're like, oh, I recognize you from the credit card commercial, as opposed to being like, hey, you're the actor from all those movies. And it's just a great look at a person's mortality as observed through like an avenue that we're all very familiar with, which is like the aging Hollywood actor. But it's such a good song. Like, I don't know, it's just such a good piece of poetry. It's something that I think everyone should go listen to right now, and then come back here and listen to the rest of this fucking podcast, because I'm not recording this for my own good. But yeah, no, there are so many like good songs in here. It's really nice. It's also like simultaneously an ode to 1950s pop music, the likes of which I'm not a huge fan. In particular, there's a track on this called There Goes My Miracle, which I really do not like, because it's just the kind of music that I just find so sickly and dated. But then it's followed up by a track called Hello Sunshine, which is the penultimate track on the album, and it's really good. And it is quite simply about depression, and I think it's just a very interesting take on the subject, and it's always good to hear Bruce Springsteen talk about things like that, because he's the man and he's the boss, and you should do everything that he says. So Western Stars by Bruce gets the Midnight Hour thumbs up, which Bruce will be delighted about, because he is a huge fan of the Midnight Hour, and he references it in like most of his songs. So I'm happy to be able to make him happy. Like, I'm happy that I have that kind of power and that I have that kind of level of importance. We had an EP released by Lil Nas X of Old Town Road fame, and I have to be honest, I really dug Old Town Road. I thought it was class. I thought it was really fucking hilarious that it's the first #1 single that Trent Reznor has his name attached to, because it was made using a beat off of the instrumental Nine Inch Nails album Ghosts. But yeah, it's such a like fun song. How can you hate it? The fact that it was like stripped of its fucking country music prowess by Billboard or whatever is such a load of bollocks. Like, it completely embodies the fucking spirit of country music, and it does it in a, like, I don't know, it does it in like a relevant way, and in a way that I don't think the genre can afford to shun. I know country music is huge. That's not me like talking shit about country music, but like, if you have this ability to pierce the mainstream with something, you should absolutely fucking hitch your wagon to it. They even got Billy Ray Cyrus on it for a remix, which was super cool. And just, I don't know, everything about this. This is a very modern approach to music appreciation that I've only kind of learned recently, right? And Bring Me the Horizon are a great example of it. They're a band that I kind of like, right, but I don't particularly love. But when they go in towards really super mainstream pop directions, I always think to myself, like, this is great. They're going to make a lot of money. And I respect that. And I'm doing the same thing with Lil Nas X, where I don't think he's particularly good. I think he's very, very good at making memes, and I think he's very internet savvy. And I think that Old Town Road is really just a big ball of irony. It's kind of like the way we all think about the song Africa by Toto. We don't know if we like that song or if we're only liking it ironically, and there's no difference anymore. And like, the further on in my lifetime I live, it's like the line between satire and honesty, or the line between sincerity and irony, is blurring so much that nobody fucking knows what anybody thinks about anything anymore. And so I listen to fucking Billy Ray Cyrus and Lil Nas X, right? And I'm like, this is really good. This is going to make a lot of money. This is going to generate a lot of buzz. And it's like, I'm a fucking mark for fucking Columbia Records, basically. Like, I don't know if I even like it or not. I just respect it. And I feel like in any other fucking era, this would not be me at all. I used to hate all of the things that are just done for purely the sake of production and stuff like that. And I used to be such a like anti-mainstream, like, I don't know. It's just so fucking weird to me. This era of music is so fucking odd. But yeah, anyway, the EP itself is not really that great, in all honesty, and Old Town Road is on it twice, and it is the highlight both times. So yeah, that's what I think of that. Tom York released an album called Anima or Anima, and it also had like a Netflix video thing to accompany it, which I never watched. I listened to the album a couple of times though, and it is pretty damn good. I'm not a huge Radiohead fan. I respect and appreciate them, but I've never been particularly crazy about them. Like, I don't even think I'd go see them live. It's kind of a thing I really don't understand about myself, why I don't like them more. I think it's maybe because they have such overzealous fans, and I get so put off of something when people demand that I like it. There's something very antagonistic within me that sort of pulls me away. But yeah, this album is good. There's one lyric in it, and I forget what it is, but it's something about, it's I will paraphrase it. It's like, I am becoming a computer or some bullshit. I don't know. But good album, in all honesty. Next up, we have got Purple Mountains, which is actually a really sad sort of story. Purple Mountains is like this was a new indie rock band formed by a guy called David Berman, who is probably most famous as being the singer of a band called the Silver Jews, which I fucking hate that name for a band. I don't know why. Not because I hate the Jews, because I know someone out there is going to comment that. No, I just don't like the name the Silver Jews, because I feel like it opens you up for anti-Semitism or something. Like, I feel like oftentimes if you hand someone the low-hanging fruit, they will take it. And I feel like a lot of the time, if you base your I don't know what I'm talking about. I was about to go fucking full Jordan Peterson mode on this. Anyways, I don't really like the name. That's fine. But David Berman is like a very interesting artist. He released a book of poetry called Actual Air, and I bought it when I was about 18 years old. And I've always been like really interested in poetry. I don't know if anyone knows that about me, or if I've ever spoken about that before, because it's not like, I don't know. People always think, if people find out that I like poetry, they'll ask me a bunch of questions that I don't really know the answers to and stuff like that. But Actual Air was this really I don't know, like it made like an impact on my life, definitely, and it made an impact to the type of things that I would write at the time, I guess. And when I read Actual Air, I was so impressed by it that I wanted to like emulate it in a lot of ways, and I had a bunch of screen names and projects and stuff that I would call Artificial Air. One of them was the PlayStation account, which I gave to Nep. I don't know if there's any like really old school Nep fans. Like 8 or 9 years ago, Nep had an account called Artificial Air, and that's because of me. And I did that because of David Berman. So this is an artist who's who I've always like really respected. And Purple Mountains is unfortunately his last project, because he committed suicide in August, which was only, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks after this album was released. And the album has some things in it that definitely point to his depression and his hopelessness and stuff like that. And it's I don't know, it's such a difficult topic to grapple with, I guess, when you look at it through the lens of someone's creative output and then line it up with their life events, and there are lots of like red flags and things that should have been red flags and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know, it can be so difficult to talk about. I watched Anthony Fantano review Mac Miller's latest song, and he started crying in it. And I actually, honest to God, because Anthony Fantano is kind of a little bit pompous, and like, I don't know if I would call him pretentious, but sometimes I feel like he's almost disrespectful, but he's not actually. It's just he appears this way to me because I'm like an offended music fan or whatever. But I thought that he was joking, and I didn't think that he was actually crying, and I thought that he was like taking the piss out of how sad the song felt. But like, he actually cried, and he wasn't even a big fan of Mac Miller. He panned the album Swimming. Not panned, I think he only gave it like a 6 out of 10 or something. But it's amazing how much you can glean from somebody's music about their life. And I think everyone knows the kind of feeling that I'm talking about here. And if you want to experience that, listen to Purple Mountains and their only album, which is called Purple Mountains. But if you listen to it through the lens of knowing that the singer would go on to lose his battle with depression, I think it's like especially profound. It's like eerily profound. So that's all ahead of you if that's something that you're looking for. In July, we also had new albums from the following bands that I can all pretty much categorize as one thing: Nas, Sum 41, Kaiser Chiefs, and I don't know, Iggy Azalea. These are all artists that I just do not feel. Now, I didn't listen to the Sum 41 album, and they're like a band that I will secretly defend against all aggressors. But I do not care about Kaiser Chiefs. I definitely don't care about what Nas has to say anymore, even though I'm pretty sure this one was produced by Kanye. But yeah, I don't know. No, wait, was it? Was the Lost Tapes 2 isn't produced by Kanye, is it? It was the one before that. Nasir was produced by Kanye. Yeah, I don't care about like anything Nas does post Illmatic, apart from Life Is Good. Those are 2 super good Nas albums, and then everything else is like fine at best and bad at worst, I guess. What was the other thing that I wanted to say here? July 26th, Chance the Rapper released an album called The Big Day, and it is absolute fucking garbage. Complete and utter tripe. Do not listen to this album. It's his debut album. Everything else he's done was mixtapes, and they're all fine. Like Acid Rap and Acid Rap is pretty good. I thought The Coloring Book was excellent. The Big Day is nonsense. It is purely, it's just bad, and I don't mean to like drag him, because I know that he's a huge listener of the Midnight Hour, and like, I am sorry, Chance, if you're listening. I just didn't enjoy this. I don't know what to tell you. On August 2nd, Drake released Care Package, which shouldn't even be in here because it's not an album, it's compilation, but it is very good. It's all of his old stuff and like less memorable stuff and like fan favorite stuff that never really made it at the time. But it's very good. It's actually a very, very good compilation of stuff. and you just feel like there is no wrong that Drake can do unless he's in a rap feud. August 9th. So this album, Slipknot released an album called We Are Not Your Kind, and Slipknot are, in my opinion, a very interesting band. People say stuff like, oh, they're gimmicky, they're just masks, blah, 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 blah. I don't really know if I buy into the notion that Slipknot are all gimmick or all style and no substance or anything like that. And I remember arguing this with somebody in work, and I came up with a really good argument, which I have now completely fucking forgotten about. But it was good at the time, and you will just believe me, I guess. But this album, We Are Not Your Kind, is... What is it? Is it their 6th album? Yeah, it is. It's... Oh, man. I don't know. They're such a... I don't know. They're just such an interesting entity to me as a band. Their first album... Well, they have like 2 first albums, it depends. Their first album with Corey Taylor as Slipknot proper is their self-titled album of 99, I think it is. And it's fine. I don't think it's aged particularly well at all. I remember liking it at the time. I don't listen to it at all now, ever. Then their second album, Iowa, is widely considered to be their best and their most heaviest. In my opinion, their best album is Vol 3, The Subliminal Verses. I think from front to back, it is literally one of the best metal albums of all time. And then after that, they released All Hope Is Gone, which I was not really all that keen on, although it does have some great singles. Then there's The Grey Chapter, which is a band trying to figure out who they are in the wake of losing one of their most influential members. And then we have this album, We Are Not Your Kind, which is sensational. It's a completely just I don't know, it's like a refined definitive statement on what Slipknot is and who Slipknot are and why you should listen to Slipknot, and it's great. Like I thoroughly recommend it to everybody. It starts out with this like 90-second song called Insert Coin. It's not a song. It's called Insert Coin, and you get the feeling that you're in some fucked up amusement park or arcade, and you've just inserted a coin into the most fucked up and bizarre game that you will ever play. And then the song that starts immediately afterwards is called Unsainted, and it's one of the lead singles from the album. And it's really, really good. It's got a sick music video. It's got like a creepy orchestra in the background. It's got an unbelievable hook, and Corey's vocals sound as good as ever. Then there's a track called Birth of the Cruel, and that's like a play on words about the birth of the cool, the Miles Davis thing. But yeah, no, it's a really, really slick album, and it's well worth your time, and you should definitely check it out. I just think that they're such a good band in terms of their, I don't know, everything about them, just their image, their style, like the fact that they know exactly who they are and what they're about and how long they've made it, and how they transcended the nu metal genre so successfully and so I don't know, in such a dignified manner. Like I just really think that they deserve like all of their dues at this point. Like everybody should be like, yes, they are a good band. It is time to stop hating on them for stupid reasons, such as the fact that they wear masks or whatever. So what it was people say stuff like, oh yeah, well they just make money because of the masks. Like it's all just gimmick. People just buy into the gimmick. Like you wouldn't say that about Daft Punk. So like, fuck off. You know what I mean? Interestingly, this album has a Metacritic score of 89 out of 100, right? Which is very, 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 very strong. I don't know many albums with a Metacritic score that high. Like I could name, like there's like Blonde by Frank Ocean, probably My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye, and probably To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick, like that kind of thing. Like that's the kind of level in terms of critical acclaim that this album is at. My good friends over at Pitchfork Media gave it a 6.7, and I should add that they criticized it for not having enough hip-hop elements. If this album had a single hip-hop element in it, Pitchfork would have fucking slated it and said, nu metal is dead, why are they trying to bring back nu metal? Pitchfork can go fuck themselves. What else did we have? We had another album from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard that I will never listen to because their name is so lame. What else did we have? On August 23rd, Taylor Swift released Lover. I thought it was okay. I think that she will never reach the heights of 1989 again. A lot of people think that Red is her best album, but I really think that 1989 from front to back is just one of the best pop records of the last decade. Red is very good, but it's too heavy on the ballad side, and 1989 has a nice little variation in there of different genres, and that's why it is worth your time. Lana Del Rey on August 30th released Norman fucking Rockwell, which is a super good album. If you're the type of person who plays Football Manager and just has music on in the background, you should try this for me. Put Norman fucking Rockwell on in the background, and you will imagine yourself cruising down a street in 1970s Hollywood. It's just such a lovely listen. And I recommend that you check it out. So let me see, what else do we have? Natasha Bedingfield is still out here releasing albums. Bat for Lashes had a new album. I didn't even know that. What else do we have? Post Malone. I did not listen to his album. Goo Goo Dolls are still releasing albums. Holy shit. Puddle of Mud are still releasing albums. Jeez, like the world is mad. Like, you think you've heard it all, but Puddle of Mud are still out here releasing albums. September 20th was a big day for music. We had 3 albums that I'm going to talk about here. One is from Blink-182. It's called 9. It's called 9 because it's their 9th studio album, according to their own calculations. But I think it's actually their 8th. But this album is... So, famously, Tom DeLonge left Blink-182. He was replaced by Matt Skiba. Then in 2017, they released an album called California, which was their first with Matt Skiba. And actually, it might have been 2016. Anyways, it's got a song called Bored to Death, which is really good. It's got that one, Home is Such a Lonely Place. Like, it's got good songs. It's got a little bit too much of the whoa, whoa, whoa in every track. But it seems like Mark Hoppus just cannot help himself. So I was intrigued to hear 9 because I think that Matt Skiba's influence on them is pretty good, and I also think that in Tom DeLonge's departure, we actually got to experience a little bit more of Mark Hoppus's more what I can only describe as science fiction lyrics. Like, Tom DeLonge is very much about To the Stars and Aliens and songs like Asthenia off their self-titled record, where it's about a guy in space and it's got these really spacey elements, and Tom DeLonge's guitar just sounds spacey. Like, Tom DeLonge has a great selection of songs to get stoned to because you'll feel like you're in outer space, and he does that like distorted effect incredibly well. He's a very fucking nifty guitar player. For all the shit that Blink get as musicians, like, Tom DeLonge is very good. But anyways, Mark Hoppus had an album with his band Plus 44 in like 2007 called When Your Heart Stops Beating, and there's a track on there called I don't remember, but there's a song on it where it says like, and every night our lonely planet slides across the universe. Like, all of these kinds of things. I like lyrics about outer space. What are you gonna do? And so I was excited to hear Mark step out into that kind of field once more, out of Tom DeLonge's shadow a little bit. And 9 is just complete and utter fucking garbage. It's like listening to a bunch of men in their 40s trying to conjure up the spirit of Fortnite. Like, I don't know how to even describe it. It's like the album was written by a phone app or something like that. It's Blink-182 trying to use an algorithm to make them get closer to Imagine Dragons. Like, I don't know. And like, whatever, I fucking respect it. If they're marketing music to kids, like, I feel like they're entitled to make a little bit of money after everything. But yeah, it is unfortunately at the cost of my eardrums. So there you go. It's such a shame, because California, while it did have too much of the whoa whoa whoas, had many great moments that salvaged it, and many like sing-alongable hooks. And 9 has nothing going for it. It is an objectively bad album. We had Liam Gallagher's second solo effort, Why Me, Why Not, on the same date, and I thought that this was fine, a little bit better than As You Were. He seems to be a little bit more comfortable as a solo artist now. He will forever be in the shadow of Oasis, though. Even his best solo songs just sound like Oasis songs. There is pretty much nothing that sets him apart. I don't think there's any solo song he can do that's better than any Oasis single. But it's fun, and if you need the Oasis itch to be scratched, then go listen to Why Me, Why Not, and it's there, like songs like Shockwave, and even off the first album, songs like Come Back to Me and Wall of Glass and stuff, like they're Oasis-y, and they should really do it for you. Then also on September 20th we had Digital Shades Volume 2 from M83, and I believe it's an entirely instrumental album, this one. Shit, I need to double check that. Am I right about that? Oh, excuse me. Man, my heartburn is so bad, and I just keep talking, and it's only making me worse. But anyway, Digital Shades Volume 2 by M83 is really good. M83 is one of my favorite artists. I guess it's a group, but I consider it to be just it's like a project from a guy called Anthony Gonzalez. But this is worth listening to. It's worth getting lost in. It's that kind of, it's very like otherworldly sounding and just really nice. I think that might be it for September. So we will move on to October. I knew that was the next month. I was just scrolling down to see if there was anything in it. So if anyone is like, wow, he didn't even know that October follows September, I fucking knew. City and Colour released an album called A Pill for Loneliness, and this is like, I think City and Colour is the guy, his name is Dallas Green, he's from the band Alexis on Fire, or Alex is on Fire, or however the fuck you say their name. But City and Colour is like his passion project where he sings with his singy voice instead of shouting with his shouty voice. And he famously released an album called Sometimes, which is like really fucking good, like a very, very good album. And I know people who have the logo of the album tattooed on their bodies. In fact, you know one person who has it, and Tom, if you're listening, what's up? But yeah, then his solo albums got like progressively worse as they went on. But I think A Pill for Loneliness is a nice return to form, and there's a song on there called Astronaut, which I really enjoy. On the same date, we had an album called Deceiver by a band called Dive. It's Diiv if you're looking for it. And this is like just a solid shoegaze album. From the first track to the last, and I listened to it yesterday. I really enjoy it. The Menzingers released an album called Hello Exile, which is just not really that great. Like, it's fine, but it's not, I don't know, it's missing something. It's missing the same kick that they used to have, or I don't know, it just didn't really do it for me, and like I would be a big fan of theirs. Then we had Two Hands released by Big Thief, their second album of the year. This is really, really good, and it's much more easy to define than UFOF. It's kind of just straightforward folk music, but just as songs, they hold together so well, and just the, I don't know, there's just the folk thread that runs through the whole album is so consistent and so coherent. It's such a fucking pleasant listen. When the day that it came out, I listened to it on the bus on my way to work, and it was just so nice looking out the window and listening to this album. So I recommend this one. Then as the rest of the month goes on, we kind of have a whole lot of nothing. I'm sure I'm going to skip over something here that I enjoy, but whatever. Like, time is money, as they say. I hate whenever people say that. Or what's the other thing that people say? Like, time is money, and then there's another one that's like, cash is king. If you know anyone who unironically says cash is king, I want you to punch them in the face and tell them I told them to go fuck themselves. What do we have here? formerly known as Twigs, released an album called Magdalene, and I can't remember if I listened to it or not, so don't consider that to be an endorsement. Fucking Lil Peep released about 6 albums, which is strange, but what are you gonna do? I didn't listen to any of them. Coldplay, Robbie Williams, Labyrinth, oh god. Man, I fucking hate that Labyrinth guy so much. I cannot fucking believe that people like him and his music. That song, Beneath Your Beautiful, is such a fucking garbage song. Like, complete and utter tripe. And people fucking jizz themselves silly over it, and I just cannot get over it. It's so bad. Even lyrically, it's just fucking nonsense, like. And what's the other one? There's that John Legend song. There's Beneath Your Beautiful by Labyrinth, and then what's the John Legend one? That oh man, what is this fucking song called? Hold on till I Google it now, and it appears in my fucking related links for the rest of my life. John Legend, All of Me. Oh my god, that is, now I can remember how it goes as well. Oh, I fucking hate that song. It's so fucking sickly. I absolutely fucking despise that kind of music where it's just little piano ballad and shitty lyrics. Oh, good god. So that's what I think of that. Does anybody know, are there any Midnight Hour historians who can tell me which episode it was where I went on my rant about Bohemian Rhapsody? Because I really want to listen to it again so that I can finalize my thoughts on that song, because I can't remember what they are. And I can't remember what I said, but I just remember talking for about 7.5 minutes straight about how much I fucking hate that song, and I would really like someone to point it out to me if anybody has the time and the fucking intellectual fortitude. I think that's it, boys. I think that we're done. And the girl, sorry, I know that at least one girl listens to the show. Yeah, I think that is it for the year for me. I'm sure there's probably, hold on, if I go to my Spotify and filter by albums or something, recently played, no, give me my albums, you dumb fuck thing. Oh, there's basically nothing recent in here, is there? Okay, I guess I can go through here like real quick. There's an album called Somewhere City by a band called Origami Angel. It's kind of like just emo, I guess, but it's really good, and I would recommend you check that out. There's May God Bless Your Hustle by Mike. If you like Earl's Sweatshirt, you will like this. There's also Earl's last thing, Feet of Clay. It's only 7 tracks long. It's very interesting, though. He's making some of the most, what would be the word here? Like subversive hip-hop music? I don't know. It feels like mainstream hip-hop is kind of blending in with emo quite well, and Earl has all of the characteristics of emo hip-hop but none of the sound qualities of it. He's much closer to a Trent Reznor type figure than he would be to like a Good Charlotte or that kind of thing. I say Good Charlotte because Lil Peep pretty much borrowed his entire voice from Joel Madden. Is Joel the singer or is Benji the singer? I think Joel is the singer. And so you, like, I don't know, there are lots of similarities there, and I feel like just with the kind of emo trend in hip-hop at the moment, that's a much more apt comparison. And also, I don't have to fucking explain myself to you. How did I forget Jesus is King by Kanye West? Holy fucking shit. I didn't think much of this album, honestly. I was genuinely interested to hear a spiritual or gospel album from Kanye because, in all honesty, the opening track on The Life of Pablo, the name of which is now blank. Is it Father Stretch My Hands, or is that what the fuck is the opening track on The Life of Pablo with Chance in it and all? Ultralight Beam, Jesus Christ, yes, of course, Ultralight Beam is what it's called. Like, that's such a beautiful song, and I was really excited to hear like a whole album of that, but instead it's like an album of like, I am a Christian now, but I don't have any singular Christian message to deliver, and I'm still just talking about how I am mistreated. And it's just like, I thought, though, that your crossover into gospel music was supposed to symbolize a fresh start for you, and you know, the like more humble beginnings, but instead it's the same. It's the same Kanye, which I have no issue with, I guess, thematically, but it's the same Kanye with none of the bite in his songs. It's like he's shooting himself in the foot, really, for the sake of what? I don't even understand. Some kind of public image or something? And he says he's never going to make secular music again, which again I don't have a problem with. It's just there's nothing new in Jesus is King, and that's fine too, but like the old stuff has also been stripped away for the most part, so it's kind of just, I don't know, it's hollow. And like, I think hollow Kanye is still better than a lot of other people, but this album just didn't really do anything for me. It was quite a disappointment. And there's the whole fucking drama of a Kanye release, like the cycle of his release and all of the fucking, I don't know, it's so exhausting sometimes, and it's very hard to be a fan of his and defend him to people. I don't know, like in like 2010 I hated him, and I think generally my life was a lot easier when I hated him. There's also this album, Hiding Places by Billy Woods and Kenny Segal, which is completely worth your time. I listened to that one yesterday too. It's really good. What else is there? Man, I download so many fucking albums on this thing. It's really hard for me to know, looking through here, which ones of these came out this year and which ones didn't. All My Heroes Are Cornballs by JPEG Mafia was honestly, I would say, like top 25 album of the year for me. It's really, really good. It's very, I enjoyed JPEG Mafia's the album before that too, but All My Heroes Are Cornballs sounds way more like an artist, like really coming to fruition, and I would definitely recommend that. There's also Replica 2019 by 65 Days of Static, which is actually, I'm a huge 65 Days of Static fan. I have all of their albums. I have all of their like underground bootleg shit, all of the mass download files that were released on their forums back in the early days, all of that stuff. So they're one of my favorite bands, and I saw them live too. But this album, like, it's nice and it definitely has its place, but I don't feel the need to go out of my way to listen to it. It's an entirely instrumental album, as all of theirs are, except for like in The Destruction of Small Ideas there is a track with a metal band in it called White Peak. I don't remember the name. But yeah, Replica 2019 it's nice, but it's just not. It's really missing a bit of a kick, I guess. A Picture of Good Health by Life. I actually haven't even listened to that one yet. What else do we have? Why Me, Why Not, and 9, Same Day. Yeah, this might be everything. It's too hard for me to tell what else came out in 2019. Yeah.
I'm just going to seamlessly add myself in here from the future, and if I edit this well enough, you won't know that this is me on a different day. But I'm sure that my voice sounds different. I've just woken up. So here's a weird thing. I was doing that list, and this is a really good example of why you should actually plan your podcasts if you are a podcaster. I went through the list of Wikipedia albums, and there was one glaring omission that I didn't realize until immediately after I stopped recording, and by then it was too late for me to go back in. So here I am, a couple of days later, and there is first up, I want to say one album that I didn't mention that I think is totally worth your time if you like punk rock music, or maybe even, I guess this kind of possibly bridges into hardcore, but there is an album called Covert Contracts by a band called Control Top. They are one of those kinds of, maybe, I wouldn't even say far left, but like very, very left leaning punk rock bands who have just a very interesting raw kind of a sound, and I got to see them play most of this album live. earlier on in the year, which was super cool for me, and they're just an awesome band. Another album that came out that I think some of you would like is The Talkies by Girl Band. I don't really think it's that great. Definitely not as good as their first album, but I'm just not really into them in general. I don't think that they're bad or anything like that. They just are not quite for me. So that's that. And then another album is from an Irish post-punk band called the album is called When I Have Fears, and the band is called The Murder Capital, and I think you should check out that album too. But the main album that I want to talk about is my album of the year for 2019, and a lot of people are going to roll their eyes and be like, you told us this already, but a lot of people haven't heard me say this, so shut the fuck up. This album is called Doggerel by a band called Fontaines DC. The DC stands for Dublin City. It's a very interesting album in terms of the styles that it blends really seamlessly in it. It kind of does like a post-punk thing, a punk rock thing, and some kind of like jangly British invasion type thing. And then so the best way I can explain this, I think, to the age group of my audience is, and Jake will love this if he still listens, it reminds me of the Libertines in stylistically, I guess. I understand that the Libertines are one of the most British bands ever, and Fontaines DC are one of the most Irish bands ever, but the Libertines were not amazing at every genre, but they were good enough at all the genres that they did to merge them really seamlessly and make it sound very cohesive and like it was a normal kind of a sound. I'm a big fan of their first two albums, the way that they blend, I guess, like what would be considered indie music at the time, even though everything got fucking classified as indie. You got bands like signed to Columbia Records calling themselves indie bands and stuff like that. But that general sound, and then they had like the post-punk and like even punk rock elements, like the song Horror Show and stuff like that. And then the jangly British invasion songs like Don't Look Back Into the Sun and Can't Stand Me Now. And they just meshed it all up really well, and then coated it with kind of finely tuned lyrics that exist either as a stream of consciousness or else like a piece of, like, I don't know, college student poetry. But it worked really, really well for them. And Fontaines DC do basically the same thing, except where the Libertines are British and seek to romanticize elements of English literature, Fontaines DC are 100% Irish. The main thing that they sing about is the gentrification of Dublin City and the kind of the loss of identity and the loss of innocence of the country of Ireland. It's mostly centered around Dublin, but there's a track called Roy's Tune, which is about a border town and the complete lack of anything there, really. And the kind of feeling of hopelessness that one has when they watch their national identity kind of disappear. But it's not nationalistic either, I don't think. They're not really giving this process a scathing review as much as they are pointing out that it happens and then telling the stories from the front lines, kind of. But it's such a fucking interesting album. Like, I really, really dig it. Reminds me of a lot of other post-punk bands that are around, but I think that Fontaines DC have the best production. The album itself sounds like a live album. It's very, very frantic and kinetic and straight to the point. The only other thing, right, is that if you are one of those people who has maybe not listened to like a huge variety of music in your life or something like that, and I'm not, there's nothing wrong with that. Also, I'm surprised that you're still listening if that's the case. A lot of these lyrics, a lot of the vocals on the Fontaines DC record Doggerel sound like they are just spoken, and that really annoys a lot of people. So I guess it isn't for everybody. Very little of it is actually sang, but I think that, I don't know what it is. Like, I think ordinarily I wouldn't really be interested in that kind of thing. Like, I wasn't really that interested in The Streets. I guess like The Fall never really interested me that much, but this album just really gets me, and I think that the songs are all class, and I got to see them live too, and it's one of the best concerts that I've ever been to, and I'm going to see them again in July in a much bigger venue. So Jesus Christ, I cannot believe I forgot about that, but I was going off a list, and I haven't podcasted in a long time. But yeah, there we are. That's it would be remiss of me if I didn't get. Is that how that's? It would be remiss of me. Yeah, I believe so. But anyway. Listen, I've been talking here for a long time by myself. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm sure you can all hear that I'm under the weather, which is unfortunately the story of my life at this point. I went for an MRI scan a few months ago because my migraines were so bad, and it turns out I have nothing wrong with my brain, which I was surprised to learn, but I have sinusitis on both sides of my face, and it's really bad because the thing you use to clean your sinuses is this what is it called here, this shit, sinus rinse, right? Sodium chloride and sodium bicarbonate. And you basically put this little sachet. If you look at your screen, you won't see it because I do not do video. You put it into this hot water thing, and then you put it up against your nose, and then you squirt it into your nose, and it washes out the whole back of your nose, and sometimes it comes down the back of your throat, and it's rotten. But I can't fucking do that because I have a deviated nasal septum, and the fucking fluid won't even go in the whole way around, and they don't know what to do with me. And they're like, oh yeah, we can put you in for this operation, and like the waiting list is like fucking 5 years or whatever. And so oh man, it's fucking horrendous. I really am struggling in life. No, I'm just kidding. But it's definitely something that I think you take for granted though, because there are days where I have what feels like close to a fully functional nose, and I just feel like, oh my god, this is the best. I am never going to take advantage of this feeling ever again. And I do without fail every time. So what are you gonna do? But anyways, I didn't think I was gonna talk for even 1 hour here, and you've almost had 1 3/4 hours of me talking to myself. My neighbor must wonder what the fuck is wrong with me. But hey, tell me if you actually enjoyed this, because I do like talking to myself, and I like that you listen to it, but I don't know how it compares. And I think if it were up to me, and if I were a bit more confident, I would do lots of episodes where I talk to myself. The only thing is I feel like there's basically no comedy in them because it's really hard to be funny when you're just by yourself. But yes, my promise to you for 2020 is nothing, because I am sick of breaking promises to people. But I will try my very best to bring you more episodes of this podcast. I have some people who are lined up to come back on the show. I have at least 3 episodes in the pipeline, which means you will be hearing them at some stage over the next 3 months, realistically. And other than that, I'm starting a new job that I'm going to be quite busy with, but once I settle down into it, I should actually end up having more free time in the future. So I am hoping to do some live streams and stuff like that. I've only done like I think 4 live streams maybe in the last few months, but I really enjoyed them, and I'd really like to do more. There's only ever like 12 people in, but it's just fun and very chilled out, and based on the feedback that I've gotten from other people, they've said the same thing too. So yeah, I don't know. I've definitely given up on the idea of being like a not even well known, but like even like a known personality on the internet. But I would definitely like to make more content for the people who have stayed and who still value my opinion and stuff, because I'm very appreciative of it, honestly. And it definitely improves your day when you get a message from somebody that you've never spoken to before, and they know something about you, and they want to know something else based on your opinion on another thing that they know. And like, I don't know, it's just cool. It's nice to know that people out there are interested, I guess. Anyways, to 2020, and
I do hope that you all have a great year, and hopefully at the end of this year I'll be doing a better version of a year in review episode, and we'll all have great years. But yeah, I don't know. Here's to that. Godspeed, my friends.
Sometimes I don't wanna try. I'd rather fall.